They had a dining table that seated 12, mahogany, polished every Friday by someone whose name I was never allowed to know. It sat under a chandelier my mother imported from Vienna crystal glass that caught light like diamonds, casting cruel rainbows across the floor. At that table, every seat was for someone, Dad at the head, Mom across from him, my older brother Zaid, future lawyer, my sister Layla, the ballet star. Even my cousin who visited twice a year had a permanent chair, but me. I was given a foldable stool by the kitchen door. When I was younger, I asked my mom why. She didn't look up from her wine. You're not ready to sit with the family yet, Amira. Don't make a scene. I used to think it was something I'd outgrow, like braces or acne or the habit of stuttering when I spoke too fast. But I turned 16 last month, still no chair, still no name in the family group chat, still no place at the table. Layla had a birthday gala with a string quartet when she turned 16. Zaid got a Rolex, I got a polite smile, and a card that said stay focused. And every time I tried to share something I was proud of, a coding project, an award, a song I wrote, they brushed it aside like lint on a cashmere coat. Don't get distracted with hobbies. That's not real achievement, sweetheart. Focus on what matters. I stopped showing them things after a while. But they never saw the fire that silence lit in me. They didn't see the nights I spent awake, headphones in, watching lectures on quantum algorithms, or building small programs to automate tasks at school. They didn't know I had 82,000 followers on GitSpace under the username NullKitten, an anonymous account where I shared my AI-generated art, code templates, and mobile app builds. They didn't ask, they didn't care to them. I was just the extra child, a burden in the background, a quiet ghost in a loud family portrait. One night, I remember this vividly, I had made something I thought might finally break through to them. It was a prototype for a mobile app that helped neurodivergent kids communicate more comfortably in school, using visual prompts, adaptive tone analysis, and real-time translation of stress signals. I had beta tested it with a classmate who had selective mutism. He used it for 2 weeks and smiled at me in the hallway for the first time. That smile meant everything. So stupidly, I brought the idea to dinner. I made something, an app. It's helping a kid at school who couldn't talk before. Dad interrupted. Amira, please, we're discussing real things here. He was talking to Zaid about investment portfolios. Mom didn't even look up. You're still not ready, she murmured, swirling her wine. Maybe when you're older. I nodded. Said nothing, picked up my plate and walked out. That night, I sat in my closet with my laptop on my knees and stared at the screen. Not ready. Fine. I would stop asking for a seat at their table. I'd build my own. Over the next 6 months, I doubled down. I cleaned up the app, renamed it Unmute, and posted a demo video on GitSpace under NullKitten. It went viral overnight. Tech creators, therapists, and special education teachers started tagging each other. One tweet called it a game changer for silent voices. I started getting DM investors, foundations, advocacy groups. They asked who I was. I didn't tell them. Not yet. I needed more traction, more proof, more leverage. Meanwhile, at home, I was still the same ghost. My mother planned a family cruise to Santorini for the summer. I wasn't invited. You need to stay back and focus on school, she said. Travel's a distraction for someone like you. Someone like me. I smiled politely. Of course, Mom. But instead of school, I spent those 2 weeks in San Francisco, invited by a startup incubator that had tracked down my code. They didn't know my age until I stepped into the office. Their jaws dropped when they saw me. You built this, alone. Yes, you're 16. Still not ready, apparently. They laughed. Then they offered me $250K in seed funding on the spot. I declined. I had bigger plans. I came back home to silence. No one noticed I'd been gone. At dinner, Dad was praising Layla for a ballet scholarship. Zaid was talking about internships in Dubai. No one asked me about my week. I took a bite of my rice and smiled. They had no idea. 3 weeks later, I received an invitation to speak at a youth tech summit in New York. One of the organizers had seen my demo at the incubator and wanted me to present Unmute in the keynote segment, alongside established developers and innovators. It was set to be live, streamed globally. Investors from 3 continents were attending. I said yes. I told my parents I was going on a school field trip. They didn't question it. Why would they? To them, I was still not ready, but I had my ticket. My slides, my prototype, and my voice. For once, I would be heard. They say the walls in our house were soundproof. They weren't, my parents just never listened. Behind the closed door of my bedroom, past the trophies they never noticed and the notes taped to my mirror, I was building something they'd never believe I could. While Layla rehearsed pirouettes in the marble floored studio and Zaid practiced his mock trials with lawyers Dad paid to coach him, I was up until 4 a.m., fixing bugs, adjusting algorithms, and reviewing pitch decks. I wasn't wasting time, I was writing the future. Unmute was no longer a prototype. It was evolving, faster than I'd predicted. Feedback poured in from teachers, students, therapists, and parents of non-verbal children. One woman messaged me from Brazil. My daughter used your app today to tell me she was scared of the thunder. She's never told me how she feels before. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I sat on the edge of my bed and cried for 10 straight minutes, not because I was overwhelmed, but because someone far away, saw me. Not my face, not my name, just what I made. I began refining the backend to make it scalable. I added language options, custom emotional prompts, a real-time SOS feature. I even used AI models to predict when a user might be in distress based on eye movement patterns and delays in interaction. It was intense, exhausting, but the best part, no one in my house asked me what I was doing. They didn't even knock. I could have been hiding a second life in there, and in a way I was. One evening, while my family was out at yet another award banquet for Zaid, I got an email that made me forget how to breathe. Subject, Unmute X Neuron Soft Collaboration Proposal. Dear Null Kitten, we've been following your work with Unmute closely. We believe your vision aligns with ours. Let's talk. Elena Kravitz, CEO, NeuronSoft Industries. NeuronSoft was the leader in assistive tech. They had clients in 42 countries. And now they wanted me. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stared at the screen, wondering if I was dreaming. I was still wearing my school uniform. My hair was a mess. There was a bowl of cold instant noodles on my desk. But somewhere out there, in a high-rise office lit with ideas and ambition, someone saw value in what I made. That night, I drafted a pitch deck so good it felt dangerous. I recorded a video, just my voice, still under the username Null Kitten. I didn't want them to see me yet, not until I was ready. A week later, they invited me to a private innovation showcase in New York. No online anonymity, no hiding. They wanted me to present in person. I stared at the invite for hours. I thought about saying no. What if I messed it up? What if I got on stage and froze? What if they saw I was just a 16-year-old girl with no real credentials? But then I thought of that kitchen stool, of my mother swirling her wine, calling my work a distraction, of my father cutting me off mid-sentence like I was background noise, and I whispered out loud, "You were always enough." They just weren't ready to see it. I clicked accept. Preparing for the showcase felt like preparing for war. I printed out my notes, recoded the app twice, installed backup files on 3 separate encrypted drives, and bought my first real suit from a thrift store in the next town over. It didn't fit perfectly, but I didn't need perfect. I needed real. I told my parents I was going on a school leadership weekend. They nodded. Barely looked up, Zaid asked if I could grab his dry cleaning while I was out. I smiled and said sure. I arrived in New York with 2 things in my pocket, a thumb drive with my entire pitch, a small photo of myself at age 10, smiling at a science fair while my family stood off, camera, refusing to join the picture. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. The venue was breathtaking. Glass walls, bright lights, rows of suited professionals with lanyards and legacy. Everyone assumed I was someone's assistant. I didn't correct them. I waited until my name was called. Up next, presenting a groundbreaking AI-driven tool for non-verbal communication. Please welcome Amira Nasir. Heads turned. Some eyebrows raised. A girl in an off-fit suit walked up the stairs and took the mic with steady hands. I opened with silence. 10 seconds, no words, just stared at the crowd. Then I said, "Imagine having something to say your entire life and no one letting you speak. Not because you couldn't, but because they never believed you were ready." They leaned in. I walked them through Unmute. Its purpose, its tech, its real life impact. I showed testimonials, data, live usage, then paused. I built this alone, in a room no one entered, in a house where no one asked. Because some of us don't wait to be invited to the table, we build a new one. The applause was loud. A woman in the front row stood, then another, then the whole room. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from crying. Afterward, Elena Kravitz walked up to me grinning. "You just made everyone here feel very, very outdated." She didn't shake my hand. She hugged me. "Let's talk numbers," she whispered. "We're ready to offer $1. $5 million to bring Unmute under our wing. You'll be the lead developer. Name your team, name your terms." I blinked. $1, $5 million, a seat at the table I built, and my name on the front door. That night, back in the hotel room, I watched my family's group chat light up. Zaid sent a screenshot of me on stage. Someone had tagged my name. "Zaid, is this for real? Mom, why didn't she tell us?" "Dad, she went to New York without permission." I stared at the screen, then turned off my phone. I had my answer. They were never interested in what I was building, only in the spotlight it cast when it became too bright to ignore. The live stream from the showcase was clipped and reposted 1,000 times. Some tech blog titled it, "Teen Builds $1. 5M Tech Solution in Silence After Being Silenced by Her Own Family." They didn't even get the details exactly right. But the headline, it was poetic. That night, my inbox was chaos. Investors, schools, news outlets, companies asking to license my tech. Foundations offering grants. One message came from a famous author asking to write my biography, and another came from my father. "Dad, we saw what you did. Call me, we're proud." I stared at the message for a long time, not angry. Not hurt, just tired, because it took the world clapping before he ever looked at me. It took a stage and lights and $1 million number to make me visible. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a quiet Airbnb on the edge of the city and started sketching out the future of Unmute, new languages, classroom versions, a pediatric mode, a partnership with a nonprofit in Kenya. I hired a small remote team, 2 engineers, 1 UX designer, and a communications specialist. They were all older than me. And every one of them reported to me with respect. No one asked if I was ready. They just asked what I needed. A few days later, I got an invitation to speak at another event, this one even bigger, the Global Change Summit. Broadcast in 19 countries, a crowd of 500 heads of foundations, policy leaders, celebrities, and they didn't just want to talk. They wanted me to close the night, the keynote. "You'll stand where Malala did last year," the organizer told me. End the night with something unforgettable. And so, on a Saturday night in Manhattan, wearing a suit tailored just for me, not borrowed, not thrifted, I stepped onto the biggest stage of my life. The lights were warm, the air felt electric. In the front row, just behind the cameras, I saw a familiar face. My mother, next to her, stiff and uncomfortable in a suit that didn't look like his, was my father. They had come. I didn't know how they got the invitation. Probably pulled a favor. That's what they did best, show up when the seats were already full. I took the mic, paused, then spoke slowly, clearly, intentionally. There's something about being the quiet one in a loud family. You start to believe silence is a flaw, that your voice must not matter, that when they say you're not ready, they're right. But I learned something behind a closed door in a house full of noise. Being overlooked doesn't mean you're underpowered. Being dismissed doesn't mean you're unworthy. And not being invited to the table doesn't mean you don't deserve one. So I built mine out of code, out of empathy, out of hours no one saw. And tonight, I'm not asking for a seat. I'm offering one. To every young girl who's ever been told she's too much or not enough. To every dreamer building in the dark. You don't need permission to speak. You never did. You were always ready. The crowd stood, cameras flashed, the applause echoed in my bones. Afterward, there was a private lounge for speakers and guests. Elena, my investor, hugged me and whispered, "You just changed lives tonight." I smiled. From across the room, I saw my parents. For the first time in my life, they looked nervous to approach me. Eventually, they did. You were incredible, Amira. And my mother said, her voice soft. We didn't know, you never asked, I said gently. My dad cleared his throat. We made mistakes. You should have told us. I did. I interrupted. You just didn't listen. There was a long silence. They weren't cruel now, just small, uncertain. And for the first time, I didn't feel smaller in their presence. We want to make it right, my mom said. Maybe come home for a family dinner next week. I tilted my head. The tables still have 11 seats. I asked, half smiling. She hesitated. We could rearrange or get a bigger one. I looked at them, not with hate, not with longing. Just with clarity, thank you, I said, but I've already found my table. I gestured behind me, toward Alina, my team, the young students lining up to talk to me. And it has room for everyone who listens. Then I hugged her briefly, softly, and walked away. That night, back in my room, I sat at a real dinner table. Not mahogany, not crystal. Lit, just wood, warm, worn, with mugs of tea and pizza boxes and laughter from the people who built unmute with me. I raised a glass of soda and said, to the ones who wait for permission, and the ones who give it to themselves. Everyone cheered. Later, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed, a message from a girl in Malaysia. I used your app today to ask my teacher for help, she cried. I never thought anyone would understand me. Thank you. I stared at the screen, tears sliding down my cheeks, then opened the photo of 10-year, old me again, the one from the science fair. She smiled back at me. She was always ready.